Sure, it's 7 o'clock.
I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If we could stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There he is.
So yeah, before you sit down, Eric and Bell, if you would like to step up front, I'll administer your oath of office. Please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the
of
Constitution
the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of New York State,
of New York State,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
Board of Education.
Board of Education.
Number 3 is election of president. I'd like to call for nominations for president of the Board of Education.
Grant.
Anybody else?
I do.
Okay, may I please have a motion?
Moved. Second.
Who was that? Heather?
No, Jody.
Motion carried.
I do.
Like to state that I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of New York State,
of New York State,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
Board of Education President.
Board of Education President. Item 4 is election of vice president. I'd like to call for nominations for vice president of the board.
I'd like to nominate Eric Polkowski.
Eric Polkowski is nominated. Are there any other nominations? Eric, do you accept?
I do.
May I have a motion, please? Moved, Mr. Kenline. Second?
Aye.
Ms.
Yep.
Forrestal.
Motion carries. And repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New York,
of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
Board of Education Vice President.
Board of Education Vice President.
This evening is a combination of our annual organizational meeting and a regular business meeting. The next several items are the organizational items. The details are in your agendas. They are all consent items. I will announce what each item is, read our recommended action, and ask for a vote. I do not need to read the details of each item. Item 5 is appointment of officers, and our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education does hereby approve the board appointments consent 5A and 5B.
Moved.
Moved, Mrs. Bragg.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments on this item?
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item 6 is designations. I believe we need to discuss this before we move on because we're designating representatives to the Erie County School Boards Association. The committees that we have open, voting delegate for the convention. Would anyone like to be the voting delegate for the convention? Heather or Mrs. K.A.? Would anyone like to be an alternate?
I'll do the alternate.
Mrs. Bragg? The ECASB Delegate Assembly. I'd be happy to do that again this year. Anyone like to be alternate? Mr. Kenline? The Legislative Committee? Mr. Polkowski? Would anyone like to be his alternate?
I'll do it. Don't we get to volunteer Bob? He's not here.
I know.
Like, he's all of these.
That's right.
That's what happens in his
That's
absence.
right.
Budget and Finance team, Mr.
I'll
Kenline,
continue that.
and I believe Mr. Massey was your
You,
alternate.
Mr. Massey, was my alternate.
We
I
will,
vote for that.
we
We
will
will put him
put him there. Also on this is the public relation representatives, Native American liaison,
I'll still do it.
Ms. Forrestal. Strategic Planning Committee. That was Mr. Massey last year. I think
Yep, that's it.
we will
That's him again.
put him back on pending his nay vote. Youth Recreation Commission,
I'll still go.
okay. Forrestal. Okay, with that detail, our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education hereby approve the board appointments consent items. I'm sorry, let me read the right item here. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education hereby approve the designation items 6A to 6C. Move Mrs. K.A.
Second.
Second, and Mr. Kenline. Questions or comments?
carried.
Item 7 is authorizations. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education hereby approve the authorization items consent 7A to 7J.
Moved.
Move Mrs. Bragg,
Second.
seconded Mr. Polkowski. Questions or comments on the authorizations?
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item 8 is district committees on special education. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education hereby approve special education items consent 8A to 8C.
Moved.
Move Mrs. K.A.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments on those items?
Motion carried.
Item 9, impartial hearing officers. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education does hereby approve the hearing officer items consent 9A and 9B.
Moved.
Move Mrs. Bragg. Second, Mr. Kenline. Questions or comments?
Carried.
Thank you. Item 10 is a combination of other items. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central Schools Board of Education approves actions 10A to 10K.
Moved.
Move Mrs. K.A.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments?
Sure, let me vote.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That concludes the organizational portion of our meeting. For those of you that are attending for the first time, 2 years ago, that took us almost an hour because I needed to read every single one of those items. Thank you very much. Item 11 is a presentation by our claims auditor, Gary Gates.
Okay, since my last audit report in April, we have had 4 audit exceptions. All 4 of them were pretty minor, mostly procedural errors. 2 of them were actually addressed and corrected before they made it to me. I got notes on them from staff when I audited them, which I was happy to see that they took the initiative to correct it first. 2 of the exceptions were repeats. They had been written up earlier this school year for the same situation. One was the food service exception, and the other one was the elementary school. For food service, an employee registered for a conference before they had submitted or were approved and already planned to attend the conference. The registration then generated an invoice that was dated before their approval. The employee stated they did the process wrong. Nobody explained how to do the correct process. So to give them the benefit of the doubt, I re-explained the right procedure for moving forward. And anytime you need to ask the district to pay for anything, you need to get approval first. Don't register until you have your approval. Then I checked, the business office sends out an email every year that explains all the purchasing procedures, contracts, different vendors. So I checked that email that went out. It usually goes out around the budget vote. And conference steps were in there, so it is spelled out for everybody. So let's keep an eye on that one.
Would it be beneficial if it's only spent once a year to recommend we send it out semi-annually to remind folks?
Reminder? Yeah, I think so.
Not that there's a lot of exceptions.
No, yeah. Especially with conferences, because sometimes people don't come across them very often, and then they're not sure, it's been a while. The other exception was the elementary office. That one was where items were purchased the day before the purchase order was approved. When I reached out to that office to see what had happened, it became clear that there may have been some confusion on how the timing of purchase orders worked. It seemed like they felt once the requisition was started, they were okay. They didn't realize they had to wait until Cindy approved it. So I reiterated, you have to wait till it's fully approved, and I moved them. They weren't really major ones, but I just wanted to make sure I addressed them. I audited the extracurricular accounts in June 16. As the year was coming to a close, you could see more activity on the accounts. Students are coming back, and the end of the year, stuff going on in sports. And I'm very happy to say, despite that, everything was balanced, everything was correct, and they were able to close the accounts.
That's good to see. That was actually our external auditors who commented on that a couple of years ago. So it's good to see that the controls are in place and that there were no problems.
Yeah, it's been running smoothly. Does anybody have any questions on anything?
Did you know if the email that you were making this reference to email with the directions on order in the Tyler portal? That might be if it's not, we'll check. That would be a good spot.
Yeah.
The employees will reference the forms and think oftentimes some of the employees don't do this very frequently, but they know that there's a central place for direction. So if it's not, we'll ask this office to put that.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoroughness and the extra notes you provide and look forward to working with you again. Item 12 is hearing of individuals and delegations on agenda items. The public comment session is for comment, not for question and answer. It is for community members to share their concerns or thoughts with the board. When speaking, please be sure to approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and if you are representing an organization, we ask that you identify that. We also ask that you maintain a respectful demeanor and tone with your comments. Please direct all your comments to the board members and not other members of the audience. We are allowing each individual in attendance to speak once and ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes out of respect for others in attendance this evening. We also ask that you not identify individual staff members or students by name for critical comment. Direct these matters to the superintendent outside of this meeting during school business hours. In the interest of civility and respect of different points of view, please do not applaud or boo speakers. The board will listen to all public comment, but it should not be expected that the board will respond. The superintendent may respond, or we will request individuals submit questions in writing so that we can get back to you at a later time. Normally we have individuals who wish to speak fill out a pink card. We have none this evening. We're going to move on to item 13, the superintendent's report. Mr. McCabe.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Good evening, everyone. A number of things to update the board on. I'd like to start by saying we're having a wonderful beginning to our summer learning program. It is great to see, if you have a chance to stop by the multi-purpose room, how the Cub Camp and Tiger Camp was set up by our elementary administrators. There's a tent and it's this campy feel, and it's their way of orienting the children to their summer learning. and then they proceed from there into their classrooms. One thing of note in particular, at all 3 levels this summer, there's opportunities to engage kids in some activities that we think they'll enjoy. We wanted it to be definitely has an academic focus, but it also has what we hope are opportunities for kids to really be excited to come on a daily basis. Currently, participation is approximately 150 children at the elementary. Middle school, right around 60. High school, I believe, Mrs. Christian, I'm kind of looking at you, I think 60 as well. I have 73 in my notes, but I think it's 60, yeah, 60. So overall, good participation this year. Certainly transportation has been tremendously helpful in the high participation rates that we have. Wanted to share with the board a little bit on where we are with our current construction project and what's happening around the campus. I actually have a meeting and a tour with campus to do some visual inspection scheduled for tomorrow morning. So if any board members would like to tag along, just shoot me let us know. Certainly, we're going to leave my office at approximately 9 p.m. As you can tell, we have some air conditioning here. We do not in 2/3 of the campus. So it's been a rather stuffy week, but that's a sign of progress, quite frankly. The heat pumps are going in at the elementary and the high school side of the campus. Boiler work is being done. We are kind of doing credit to the contractors, a rotating job of exterior door replacements, as well as new scan card readers. And that seems to be functioning pretty well, pretty smoothly. So all in all, no major interruptions. The work up at the transportation project, transportation department, I have not been up there, quite honestly, in a couple of weeks. But my understanding of the photos I've seen is that the excavation went well, the installation of the storm system is starting to progress, a lot of paving is being done. And as I said, I'll get up there tomorrow morning at 9 for a visual inspection. They have noticed the drain work in our property that's adjacent to some homes and residents is in, and that will get tied into the work up at top. But it looks nice, quite frankly. And for our facilities department, the clean out, they have to do a lot of labor every fall, clean out the leaves and the stick. That will be really minimized by the new drain system that's been installed. In your board docs packet, we attached a PDF of a list of items that were generated as potential work in a future project. And these were items that were identified when the scope of work was being imagined, if you will, or determined for this current project that will be wrapping up later this summer and into September. This is simply, for lack of a better word, a brainstorming list that was generated. There are some items that have been added as we work on this project. I do not have for you this evening any kind of cost out or estimate, but I thought it was important to at least initiate the dialogue with you, refreshing your minds. Years ago, certainly before I got here, where some of these items were determined. We do have campus working on cost estimates for us. You'll note that the athletic complex is on the list. Obviously, that's a very broad term, and we would hope that if that's something that the district is interested in pursuing, we would have presentations by CPL, our architect, to give us some options for consideration. I want to share with the board that this board knows this, of course, but just like you do with your personal finances, it's always nice to imagine what you could have, but you also pay for such things. And we would never put the cart before the horse and communicate to the public or even with you that these are definite items. We really first need to closely examine our fiscal status and conditions to see whether or not exploring a project and what the time frame of such exploration should logically be. It's important to note, to clarify the fiscal status of our current project. There's a lot of open items still to be finalized. Where we are relative to borrowing, short-term versus long-term, and the current level of our capital reserve fund. The other thing is, and I know that I'm not a business official, but she does intend, I've asked Mrs. Vedder to come to future board meetings. The maximum cost allowance remaining for the district that would be available for the next phase. You will recall that we dipped into that when we determined that the safety, health, and general operations of the district would be compromised if we didn't address the fuel delivery system. So that was a decision that we made earlier this year. Of course, that impacts our maximum cost allowance. So basically what I'm saying here is we need to have a clear indication of what dollars are left before we should seriously start planning. And knowing those factors. I had an opportunity to meet with Mrs. Strutter. We discussed this at length. And she's recommending, and that's a terrific idea, to bring in, and I forgive me, I don't know her last name, but a woman, Maggie, name is escaping me right now, who is the district financial planner that works with Mrs. Strutter to give a comprehensive view for the board of where we are fiscally, so that when we start to address these items in the timeline of a potential future project, it's clear to us what our parameters should be. That's kind of it. I didn't know if the board wanted to discuss the items now. If it's premature, or just simply have them for your consideration. Obviously, this is the simply initiation of the dialogue for next steps.
I think, as you said, it's important that before we have detailed discussions, we have a financial discussion and some preliminary cost estimates for these items, so that we can look at them. Certainly, with regard to the athletic complex, we had discussions a few years ago about the costs associated with it and the complexity of where it may need to be located or where it could be located on campus. So that will be an important consideration.
Well, earlier this evening, Mr. Massey graciously volunteered to be on the strategic planning committee. I'm thankful for that. In all seriousness, our strategic plan is outdated. I think we all had wonderful intentions to address that strategic plan during the 2021 school year. The simple reality is the demands of the pandemic and uncertainty associated with the pandemic made any kind of foundation, using that as a foundation for planning in the future, would have been speculative at best, and simply it wasn't the priority that now it truly needs to be. So with that said, we intend to begin the process of a comprehensive strategic plan. It's important to me, and I think to the board, that that strategic plan be woven into our long-range fiscal plan. And there is a disconnect right now that needs to be addressed, so that when we're identifying programming goals for our district, the professional development plans, the offerings for children, it's perfectly, just like we just discussed with the capital project, quite frankly, it's perfectly aligned with the resources that we have. And that when we build our budget every single year, it's always tied to those aspirational goals we have for kids through our strategic plan. So having said that, Mrs. Kirsten and I presented to the board the previous meeting about we have an opportunity to use some of our federal dollars to address student needs over the long term. So we intend to partner with Uriel and Bosse's, who has a cadre of specialists that do strategic planning with districts. One of the nice things about using BOCES is some of the very people that do the strategic planning will also either directly themselves or through their contact with BOCES provide us with the professional development staff. So I'm just sharing this with the board now so that you know that it will be an area of focus in the district in the upcoming year. Some of the topics that we will certainly be including, but not limited to our strategic plan, is the effective use of instructional student performance data to drive instruction, programmatic decisions, really looking to align our pedagogical practices with the new learning standards that are coming out, as well as student needs. And we've learned a lot about how our kids learn over this last year, and we really need to align our pedagogy to that. I mentioned changing standards. Finally, we've had quite a bit of discussion recently that the administrative team has about doing an analysis of the assessment. Like, how are we measuring student growth, and are those assessment measures tied to the standards closely, and are they uniformly being administered? So in other words, I'll use elementary for example. What you don't want is a grade 4 where there's 5 different teachers using 5 different versions of the test and try to measure children against a consistent standard. The alignment of assessment to the standard, and then the integrity of assessment administration needs to be solidified. I would imagine, I have no doubt, that there are strong practices occurring in that realm, but we anticipate discovering some stuff that may not be aligned. So through the strategic planning process, we can accomplish that goal. The last thing I want to note is in our current strategic plan, and certainly would be encompassed in a future strategic plan, is enhancing our equity and access to our Native American students. So those are just some of the things that I've identified. I don't own the strategic plan. It's a collaborative process that certainly we would invite stakeholders across the district, boards, board members, students, obviously teachers and administrators to develop. So I'm looking forward to that. 2 final items, if you'll allow me. Just good news. Mrs. Saley, who teaches a high school business course, has been contacted by the New York State Controller's Office and has been recognized for her contributions to developing high school personal finance education for our students. In fact, I'm reading my note here. The next generation personal finance committee has designated Akron High School as a gold standard school for personal finance education because of our district mandate of a 20-week course. There are only 2% of schools in New York State that were designated as a gold standard school. And as a result, they would like Mrs. Saley, perhaps some of her students and administrators, to go to Albany to contribute what we're doing here in Akron to help advocate for other districts that the controller would like to make it a mandate that all high school children receive a personal finance education program. And we know some of us are old enough to have children who may not have had it from their parents. They're guilty of that. So if they can get it in high school, that would be wonderful. And the second bit of good news is that Christina O'Malley had a NICE grant submission for physical computing foundations to robotics, and she has been awarded with an approximately $2,000 grant from NICE for her submission to implement the program here at our middle school. And so she will be going to an award banquet in Rochester later in November of this year. So a great recognition of 2 of the programs we have here in district. So I will share those positive accolades that our teachers are receiving from the wider educational community.
Congratulations to both of them. I know when the board was presented with the personal finance course, we were strongly in favor of adding that as a graduation requirement.
My son just took the course and I can attest that, the stuff they were learning in that class is just, you need it so much, everything from car loans to everything. It's really great stuff for them to.
And Mrs. Staley's over the moon excited because she has been advocating for personal finance education for a number of years. Her program is terrific. And now she has a chance perhaps to advocate on a wider scale beyond the Akron district. So, great news. Do I have another item? Oh, gosh, I do. Thank you.
Stop forgetting about music, Dad.
You have a proposed trip to Disney.
Oh, my goodness, it's not on my copy. Yes, I do. So this is from memory. You guys can read to me what I wrote to. Mrs. Pix has begun preliminary planning for a band trip to Disney to compete. You'll see outlined in the attachment some of the itinerary items she has. However, she did not want to go too far down into the planning process. It's exceedingly time consuming. It requires fiscal commitments from students without some sense of the board's sentiment relative to a band trip. To my knowledge, there are no restrictions or limitations on student travel or out-of-state travel, obviously, given the current state of our pandemic. So we'll see attached in board docs for initial planning. She just wanted some sentiment. I'm comfortable with it, but some sentiment from the board as whether or not she should continue.
I think it's important to note that it's not just the band, it's the chorus, the orchestra. Having been music parent president in the past and organized one of these trips, there's about 150 students that attend with a number of chaperones. This is a very important trip for the students that attend. They learn an awful lot. It's a great experience. Mrs. Bright, would you like to comment?
Is the current band parent president. Those dates might be a little long. I know she put Wednesday at one point, but I think we usually leave it on Thursday and we come back on Monday. Because of the pandemic last year, obviously we didn't have performances, so we had to submit old stuff that they kicked back to us and said, we need some new stuff. So we did tape the parade, which the kids did great on 4th of July. If anybody saw it, like it was a young group that we had, but boy, did they play their hearts out. So when we get more details, obviously her and Mr. Bardo will come to a board meeting and discuss. But we really just wanted to get a feel because it is, Jim, it's a lot to plan and to pay for. So we have to get our fundraising moving because we had a whole year of fundraising. So I'll be hitting y'all up for some stuff. Oranges, mums, never know.
Any objections to moving forward? I think.
Let's do it.
Pat, if you'd like to go on the bus with us, just let me know.
Sounds fabulous.
28 hours on the bus. It's exciting.
It's fun stuff.
Get your Mickey ears.
Again, it's the experience.
Yeah.
right.
That's right.
Mr. Lou did it. Remember,
My tolerance for
free.
sitting still is very short.
If you tow a boat.
Mine too, I managed it twice.
If you don't want to tow a boat, you can tow a train.
Yeah,
There you go. Right?
I think
There you
that's worse.
go. All right. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
thank you for the reminder.
Item 14 is minutes. Our recommended action is that we approve the minutes of the meeting held on June 23rd, 2021 as submitted by District Clerk Roxanne Beckman. Move Mrs. K.A.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments on those items? Thank you. I'm pleased to provide the next several agenda items are instructional appointments. A number of our teachers are here tonight. I will read each of these. They are lengthy, but it is important and I'm pleased to do it. Item 15 is instructional appointment, Jessica Krauss, elementary teacher. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, does hereby appoint Jessica Krauss, who holds professional certification in early childhood, birth to grade 2, and childhood education grades 1 to 6 areas, to a probationary period in the elementary education tenure area for a probationary period commencing on September 1st, 2021, and expiring on August 31st, 2025, unless extended in accordance with the law. This expiration date is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provisions of expiration date, of section 3012 of the education law. In order to be granted tenure, the teacher must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to section 3012C and or 3012D of the education law of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if the teacher receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. Salary for the school year 2021-22 will be in accordance with the district AFA collective bargaining agreement based on Schedule 2, Step 5.
Moved.
Moved, Mrs. Bragg, second, Mr. Kenline. Questions or comments?
Speech.
Jessica's here tonight. Congratulations. Welcome to Akron. Item 16, instructional appointment, Chandra Jagello, elementary teacher. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Chandra Jagello, who holds professional certification in early childhood, birth to grade 2, and childhood education grades 1 to 6 areas, to a probationary position in the elementary education tenure area for a probationary period commencing on September 1st, 2021, and expiring on August 31st, 2025, unless extended in accordance with the law. This expiration date is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provisions of section 3012 of the education law. In order to be granted tenure, the teacher must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to section 3012C and or 3012D of the education law of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if the teacher receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. Salary for the school year 2021-2022 will be in accordance with the district AFA collective bargaining agreement based on Schedule 2, Step 4.
Moved.
Moved, Mrs. K.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Bragg. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
Chandra's here as well. Welcome back. Item 17 is instructional appointment, Samantha George, middle school education teacher. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Samantha George, who holds professional certification in the physical education area, to a probationary position in the physical education tenure area for a probationary period commencing on September 1st, 2021, and expiring on August 31st, 2025, unless extended in accordance with the law. This expiration date is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provisions of section 3012 of the education law. In order to be granted tenure, the teacher must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to section 3012C and or 3012D of the education law of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. and if the teacher receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. Salary for the school year 2021-22 will be in accordance with the district AFA collective bargaining agreement based on Schedule 2, Step 5.
Moved.
Move Mrs. Gray.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Forstell. Questions or comments?
I heard she played a sport in college that I'm very fond of, so I'm very happy that she is here.
Motion carried.
Congratulations, Samantha. Item 18, instructional appointment, Megan Kiss, middle school English language arts teacher. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Megan Kiss, who holds professional certification in the English language arts 7 to 12 education area, to a probationary period in the English language arts 7 to 12 education tenure area for a probationary period commencing on September 1st, 2021 and expiring on August 31st, 2025, unless extended in accordance with the law. This expiration date is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provisions of Section 3012 of the Education Law. In order to be granted tenure, the teacher must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to Section 3012C and/or 3012D of the Education Law of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if the teacher receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. Salary for the school year 2021-22 will be in accordance with the district AFA collective bargaining agreement based on Schedule 2, Step 2. Move Ms. Forstell.
Second.
Second, and Mr. Kenline. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
Megan is here. Congratulations, welcome back. Our final instructional appointment for the evening, Kevin Wardinger, health teacher. Recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Kevin Wardinger, who holds professional certification in the health education area, to a probationary position in the health education tenure area for a probationary period commencing on September 1st, 2021 and expiring on August 31st, 2025, unless extended in accordance with the law. This expiration date is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provision of Section 3012 of the Education Law. In order to be granted tenure, the teacher must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to Section 3012C and/or 3012D of the Education Law of either effective or highly effective at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if the teacher receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. Salary for the school year 2021-2022 will be in accordance with the district AFA collective bargaining agreement based on Schedule 2, Step 3.
Moved.
Move Mrs. K.A.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forstell. Questions or comments? Congratulations, Kevin. Again, congratulations to all of our new teachers.
Just wanted to say to Megan, Jessica, and Chandra, that, and Kevin Smith, if they were here, that, you know, this is an incredibly wonderful community what each of you are about to bring to us is so exciting. These are all experienced teachers that have tremendous assets and skills. They came highly recommended. And I know that you will do great things for kids, but I also know that you will make us a better school district. And so, again, so excited. Welcome to Akron. You're going to love it.
Item 20, personnel instructional. My recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, is hereby approved the following instructional items, consent 20A to 20C. Move, Mr. Polkowski.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Kenline. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item 21, personnel non-instructional. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, is hereby approved the following non-instructional items, consent 21A to 21K.
Moved.
Move, Mrs. K. Second. Second, Mr. Polkowski. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
Item 22, district items. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, is hereby approved the following district items, consent 22A to 22C.
Actually, it's D.
D. The first one I didn't check to make sure that the letters matched the
There was an
items.
error.
There was. Move, Mr. Kenline.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
I'd like to point out that one of those items was a 5-year extension of Mr. McCabe's contract. The board greatly appreciates your efforts over the last 2 years and enthusiastically extends your contract. We have a pair of administrative appointments this evening. Item 23, appointment Mary File, Assistant Principal, Middle and High School. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, is hereby approved the appointment of Mary File to a 12-month full-time probationary position as Assistant Middle High School Principal in the tenure area of Middle School, High School Assistant Principal. The probationary service shall begin on July 16th, 2021, and end on July 15th, 2025. Salary for the school year 2021-22 will be prorated in accordance with the negotiated district AAA contract at $82,500, which is $79,332.04. Move, Mr. Kenline.
Second.
Second, Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
Item 24 is another administrative appointment. Christopher Scumo, Director of Interscholastic Athletics, Physical Education, and Health and Wellness. Our recommended action is that the Akron Central School Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Patrick D. McCabe, Superintendent of Schools, Does hereby approve the appointment of Christopher A. Scumo, who has applied for an internship certificate, in the area of school district leader to a full-time 11-month probationary position as Director of Interscholastic Athletics, Physical Education, and Health and Wellness in the 10-year area of Director of Interscholastic Athletics, Physical Education, and Health and Wellness. This probationary service shall begin on August 1st, 2021 and end on July 31st, 2025. This probationary appointment is made contingent on Mr. Scumo successfully obtaining a valid internship certificate in the area of school district leader no later than July 31st, 2021, and holding a valid professional certificate in the area of school district leader upon the expiration of the internship certificate or another valid certificate option then available that would authorize him to continue in the area of school district leader. This appointment will be null and void if the certification requirements described herein are not met. And be it resolved that the Board of Education authorizes and directs the superintendent of schools to execute on behalf of the district the employment agreement between Mr. Scumo and the district.
Moved.
Move Mrs. Bragg.
Second.
Second Mr. Kenline. Questions or comments? Christopher's here this evening. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. We've already heard how important music education is to the district and personally to the board. So are athletics. This district, athletics are important. And you'll find that many of the students who participate in music also participate in athletics. Being a small district, your role is very important to us. Congratulations. Thank you.
Mrs. Kirsten was integral in the identification of the candidates. You recommended the superintendent or interviewed. It was an easy decision, quite honestly, despite how talented all of the candidates were. And I know Mrs. Kirsten wanted to make a few comments.
I just wanted to share a little bit about Greg Scott. It was extremely apparent to me how important this particular position is, not only to individual students, our district, but the entire Akron community. It's not a small job, and you have some very big shoes to fill. Working with the selection committee, some themes became apparent to us. We know that we needed somebody who was extremely dedicated, someone who's not only dedicated to the position, but to Akron as well. Somebody who understands how important not only the athletic program is, but developing the entire child. And this is a big position with a lot of different roles, and Chris comes to us with a lot of different experiences. So we were very fortunate to pretty much build an athletic program from the ground up in Virginia. Currently, or before this appointment, he was working in small district West Valley, where he taught physical education and health to students in grade pre-K through 12. He was also their athletic director, and during that time, he grew the participation in the athletic program from 16% to 40% during his time there, which is a tremendous accomplishment for a small school district. And just one more thing to add, something that really stood out to me with Christopher. He reiterated over and over again, you will never find anyone more dedicated. You will never find anyone who is willing to work harder for the school district, community, and our students. So I am so excited to have Chris on board. So well, Chris.
Item 25, special education. Our recommended actions at the Akron Central School Board of Education approve the following classifications and placements as per the list received as recommended by the Committee on Preschool Special Education and the Committee on Special Education. These recommendations are for the least restrictive environment at this time. Move Mrs. Kahan.
Second.
Second Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments?
Motion carried.
All right, item 26, school board correspondence, Tuesday, August 10th and Thursday, August 12th is the New York State Law Conference, which is being held virtually this year. See Mrs. Redmond for registration. Sunday, October 24th, Tuesday, the 26th is the New York State School Board Convention in New York City. Again, see Mrs. Redmond for registration. Upcoming dates, we only have one meeting in July. Our next meeting is August 11th. It's our regular business meeting. Back in the cafeteria, assuming HVAC is back in place at 7 o'clock. We do have a need to go into executive session this evening for proposed litigation and the employment history of a particular person.
So
Move Mr. Kenline,
Second.
second Ms. Forrestal. Questions or comments?
Took a while to get to.
Motion carries. We are in executive session at 8:02. We do not intend to
I'll go with
conduct
David.
business when we
I
come out
literally
of
don't know
executive
David
session.
anymore.
Again, thanks to all of our new teachers and our athletic director for joining us tonight. Congratulations.
Okay. In the morning? Yeah.